And a pleasant good afternoon to you from the KXAN Live studios. I'm Billy Gates, and this is the Horns Report, where we talk about all things UT athletics. We've got a couple of details fresh into the newsroom about some coaches getting contract extensions, and here to talk about it is KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. Roger, thanks for coming by and chatting about this.
Yeah, kind of the business side a little bit today.
Yeah, and there's a lot of business going on. So, in the agenda for the UT System Board of Regents, they have a meeting coming up February 19th and 20th, and they're going to approve contract extensions for football coach Steve Sarkisian and women's basketball coach Vic Schaefer. We're going to talk about Sarkisian's first because it's gigantic. Well, first of all, I mean, it just kind of tells you how much money a college football team makes university.
Price of doing business now.
Yeah, no kidding. So if you may remember that Steve Sarkisian also signed a contract extension before last season. The NFL wasn't calling last season as they were this year. So we reported on the extension, what was it, January-ish, so last month, but didn't know the details until now. And he's getting a hefty pay raise, Roger. Like, he gets an extra year in his contract to keep him here through 2031. And by the time his contract is up for a renewal, he'll be making $12.3 million. We should have got better at coaching football.
Until he gets another extension.
Right, yeah. Yeah, until he gets another one. So just, I mean, this is sort of, I mean, he's gotten Texas to the college football playoff 2 seasons in a row, the semifinals 2 seasons in a row. Got a ton of talent coming back. Some guy named Manning is going to be the quarterback next year. They're going to have to rebuild the offensive line a little bit, but they're proven capable of doing that. Roger, this almost, I mean, dare I say, could be a bargain in the end, depending on how Texas does.
Yeah, and, you know, it's always interesting when people comment on money and how much they make, because the people that are commenting on it's not their money.
Right.
So who's to say what is a good deal and what is too much and all that. But Sark has put them back in the conversation. As you said, 2 playoff appearances, SEC championship game in the first year. Remember when Sark got here and then they announced they were moving to the SEC, and the word around the country was they can't compete in the SEC. And so they have, and he's going to keep getting rewarded. His ties to the NFL are obvious. I'm sure CDC and Kevin Eltife, the head of the Regents, knew this. Mm-hmm. And every time we had this with Mac Brown a lot early on in his career, when the Vikings job came open, Red McCombs was obviously the owner of the Vikings and a huge Longhorn donor. So, you know, that led to big extensions. It's just going to be the way it is for Steve Sarkisian. He's young, he's innovative, and he's charismatic, and he wins. As long as those things continue, NFL jobs, 5 to 7 a year is probably an average.
Maybe, yeah.
And his name will probably come up whenever there's that many. And again, it just takes one. And it's really, what does Sark want to do? Because in the end, typically NFL jobs, unless you're a Belichick with the Patriots, nobody really knew what he made. It's not like college where, you know, for all the public universities, it's out there.
Right.
But I don't think his move is going to be financially based if he wants to make the move to the NFL.
Right. And, you know, he's been there before. You know, he was offensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons. So, I mean, he's got that sort of, he's got that NFL experience. Just a matter of if he wants to leave, you know, the friendly confines of the 40 acres, DKR, who they've clearly been good to him, because anytime somebody wants to steal him away, CDC and the rest of the gang, they've been quick to throw some money at him. So it's kind of crazy how this works out. So 2025, his contract goes from January 1 to year end. It's different than the assistant coaches, who a couple of them also got pay raises. He'll be bumped up to $10.8 million this year, 2025. And under his original extension, by 2030, he was going to make $10.9 million. So he was going to get $100,000 raises each season. Under the restructured deal, by 2030, he'll be making just over $12 million. And then with the extra year tacked on to his deal, it gets to $12.3 annually. That's a lot of money.
Well, and I think what you said is maybe even more important than his salary, and that's assistant coaches being taken care of. And we've already seen attrition with Blake Gideon and then Tashard Choice. Sounds like Torrey Beckton, the strength and conditioning coach, for now has had some NFL opportunities, but looks like he's staying. We said that about Tashard Choice. He's staying until he's not.
and then he's off to Detroit, yeah.
But that's the biggest thing with head coaches. They know they're going to be taken care of. They want to make sure that they can be competitive with their assistant coaches.
Yeah.
So all that other stuff, those are just ridiculous numbers that most of us can't comprehend. So if it's $10 or $12 million. And I remember DeLoss Dodds a long time athletic director. He wanted his coaches to be among the highest paid because that also sends a message to the rest of the country as well. So it's for the now and it's for the future. And so, yeah, as you said, if Sark keeps winning, 12 million, whatever it escalates to is going to be, money well spent.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for comparison's sakes, Kirby Smart is making about $13.2 million at Georgia, and Dabo Sweeney is around the $11.5 million range at Clemson. Obviously, this is gonna kind of not really reset the coaching market, but it's gonna up paydays for elite coaches around the country as well. So expect Kirby Smart to be asking for a little more cash once his contract is up for renewal, or if they want to extend him, keep him there. Same goes with Dabo Sweeney.
And Ryan Day got
Clemson,
the big deal.
And Ryan Day, he also got a big. I think his was like 12.5, something like that.
Yeah, and again, I know people are fascinated with money, but it's like I said earlier, it's just the price of doing business.
It is.
And all the other stuff with the buyouts. That seems important, but it always seems like it's something that everybody can get through if they want to make a move one way or the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, for Sark right now, his concentration is on filling that running backs coaching job and continue to develop and maybe plug a few more holes through the portal before he gets ready to get after it. Not so much in spring football now, but this summer when then the whole squad is in Austin and they begin the summer really. As soon as they start after that second semester, that's really the start of training camp informally, but that's when the work starts to get done.
Yeah. We mentioned assistant coaches getting pay raises. The special teams coordinator, Jeff Banks, and linebackers coach, Johnny Nansen, they both got 1 year tacked onto their deals. Banks is going to get $1.3 million by March 2027, and he's set to make $1.2 this year. This coming March is when the assistant coach contracts cycle through. They go from March to February. They go over a yearly thing, but it's still a year, but it's just kind of offset.
And they're the ones that are most effective with a coaching change because if something happens to Sark, he's going to have a buyout. He's going to be fine, already fine. Let's be honest with what he's making.
Right.
But it's the assistant coaches that usually the max they get for a guaranteed deal is 2, maybe 3 years. Used to be, just 1. And so, they're making a lot of money, but suddenly they have to hit the total reset unless it's a change where Sark leaves, and he obviously would take some people with him likely. But again, I can't emphasize enough, as you know, that's such an important thing for the head coach is to make sure that pool of money is there to attract and keep assistant coaches.
Yes. Yep. So Banks will end up making $1.3 million by 2027, and he gets $250,000 increases each year before that. And Nansen, he gets an immediate raise. He will be bumped up from $925,000 to $1.1 million in about 2 weeks when his new contract begins, or his new year on his contract begins. And then by March 2026, he gets bumped to 1.2, which he's talked about. Both Banks and Nansen, Sarkisian has, glowingly, since they've joined the staff. But he really loves Nansen, and I would not be surprised if Nansen could potentially make that defensive coordinator jump, kind of like what Blake Gideon did to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and he brings that kind of electric, emotional energy with him, and every staff needs some of those because not all coaches are like that. There's a little bit of yin to the yang, and so he does that. He's got the West Coast ties with his time at Arizona. He's got the Hawaiian ties as well. So it's just you never know all the things an assistant coach brings outside of the coaching. You know,
Right.
who are they connected to? What areas of the country? What high school coaches that have pipelines, things like that. So clearly, Sark thought bringing in Johnny Nansen was going to be a good move. Certainly looks like it's panning out that way.
Absolutely. The defense has been amazing, especially the linebackers with Anthony Hill, David Benda, and all those guys just really playing well this season. So talking about more money, we'll move to the women's basketball side, where Vic Schaefer is getting a 3-year contract extension to keep him around until 2031, it appears. And he's getting also a lot of money, not nearly as much as Sarkisian. However, he's going to be maxed out at around $2.6 million by 2030. Again, with the Longhorns women's basketball team, the way they're playing this season, they could very well win the SEC in their first season. This also seems like a bit of a bargain when it comes to women's basketball.
Yeah, let's be honest. They've got 3 games remaining, and if they win all 3, which they'll be heavily favored, they're going to at least share a regular season title. Vic's a little different than Sark. I can't see Vic leaving for another college job back home. The only one that would make any sense to me would be back to College Station, his alma mater, but doesn't seem realistic at this point in his career and the way he has things rolling. But he's getting more money because he's earning it. And all you had to do is look at Moody yesterday. The win was great, but it's packed house. And that was what he set out to do here, was to make the women's program appointment viewing, plan your schedule around home games. And that's what he's done. And the arena has been perfect for the women's game, because when there's 5,000 or 6,000, you still have a really good atmosphere, and then you can bump it all the way up to what we've seen with the South Carolina game and with the LSU game. And my guess is that Florida game, the final regular season game, where very good chance there's going to be a trophy on the line. We'll see another sellout for Texas. So I think he's being rewarded for the job he's doing. I'm not so sure they're worried that he would leave for another job.
Right. And just speaking of appointment viewing, Sunday's game against LSU was... That was one of the weirdest games I've ever seen. I know you were up at Globe Life Field with the baseball team, Roger, but golly, like, they couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat for 3 quarters. And then all of a sudden in the 4th quarter, Texas started making shots and LSU didn't. Texas gets out of there with a 65-58 win after being down by as much as 12 points in the second half. That kept Texas's aspirations of a SEC regular season title alive, and they just didn't quit. And after the game, our new sports MMJ, Levon Whitaker, got some great video that's on KXAN.com, by the way, of Vic talking to his team, saying that was Texas tough, the way that they responded in beating that really physical LSU team, especially Anissa Morrow, who had 15 points and 20 rebounds against Texas. Nobody does that against Texas. Nobody rebounds like that against Texas except for her.
Except when you shoot the way Texas
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
That's
that was bad.
The old Bill Russell line when I think he had 55 rebounds in a game, and someone asked me, he goes, well, a lot of missed shots. Yeah. And obviously the coach on the sideline for LSU makes it extra special for longtime Texas fans, knowing what those wars have been like with Baylor, and she came out on the right side of it way too many times for Texas fans. But you think about this run that they've been on, South Carolina, and then they go to Kentucky, and that was a top 10 team, and Texas really bludgeoned them until Kentucky went on a little run in the 4th quarter to get it back to 12 on Thursday night. Then they get home late Thursday night, turn around, get LSU, and kind of find a way. And that's a trait of an outstanding team. Figure out a way to win, depending on how the game kind of evolves. You know, Madison Booker on Thursday missed, I believe, her first 4 shots in that game. She was struggling. Then she hit, I think, 6 out of her next 8 or something like that. So just kind of staying with it. Last night she did her damage from the foul line, and then they get great contributions. And Justice Carlton got the start, a freshman, and obviously Brenna Preston and Jordan Lee played big roles. So those are 3 contributing freshmen in a top 5 matchup.
You mentioned Booker, 3 for 17 from the field, started the game 0 for 11, didn't score her first field goal until about 40 seconds into the second half. And then she started to, she didn't really score a ton. She finished with 16 points, 10 of 10 from the foul line, as you mentioned. But again, just one of those things where you find a way to win. Texas was 21 for 21 from the foul line.
Yeah.
That was a huge difference for them. They had to have that, or else they would have been walking out with another loss.
Yeah, and the one thing though that people aren't talking about a lot is if you look at the two South Carolina games and this one, Madison Booker struggled at South Carolina 3 of 19.
Yeah.
She made, I believe, 7 shots in game 2, but it took 22 attempts and then struggled there. So I got to believe there's a little bit of concern because you get in the tournament and you may not be able to overcome a tough shooting night. So, that's something to kind of keep an eye on later is in these high-profile matchups, why is she struggling a little bit from the field when she's such a good mid-range player? It's not like she's putting up a lot of threes or anything like that. So, if you want to nitpick a little bit for an All-American, I think that might be it. 3 of the most high-profile games, and each night she's really struggled from the field.
And if Texas fans remember 2 seasons ago, in the second round of the NCAA tournament here in Austin, when Haley Van Lith and the Louisville Cardinals came in and beat Texas, it was the same kind of thing. Like, they just didn't shoot the ball very well, and Louisville knocked them off in the second round.
Yeah, and they play such good defense, but some nights the other team's offense is going to be clicking. Maybe they're hitting tough shots.
Right.
Texas is playing just as good a defense, but sometimes you just make contested shots. The other interesting part of this, obviously, the NCAA did their top 16.
Yes.
And this is not a projection. This is how it would have been, I believe, on Saturday.
Had the season ended before.
So it's a different exercise than we see online every Monday or every 3 days.
Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah, Charlie Cream for the men, Joe Lenardi for the women, Joe Lenardi. But it put him in Birmingham as a top seed. All season long, speculation is they'd have to go west regional to Spokane. Now, Birmingham's not down the street. It's still, a long ways away, but it's not Spokane, Washington. So I'm sure Vic Schaefer, and he's had a lot to say about this format because of the fact that it seems like no matter where the regionals are, it's going to be a long way from Texas.
Right.
But I'm sure they'd rather be in Birmingham than Spokane. Now, that could change when you look at your draw. The first thing you want to do is have the most favorable draw, but the second part of it is, helping out the fans with geography a little bit. So if that holds up, that's a little bit better. It's a long drive, but you can make that drive in a day from Central Texas.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if there's anything we know about Vic, like he'd go take his team to an alley if that's where the NCAA wanted to put their team to play. Like he'll be ready to go anywhere. But
yeah, no doubt. And the format of having 2 regionals in the same spot is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The opposite part is you're going to have a lot of teams going a long way as opposed to having 4 where your top seeds are usually somewhere geographically close to that regional site.
Okay, so real quick, moving on to baseball and softball here, just real quick before we wrap this up. Roger, like we were saying earlier, you were with the baseball team up at the Shriners Children's College Showdown. It's a mouthful. Up at Globe Life Field, a place where the Longhorns haven't been good in the past 5 seasons or so.
No.
I think I've got it in a story here. I think they're now 7-14 in the past 5 seasons up there.
And they were 0-9 in that tournament.
Yeah.
And then they were 0-10 on a heartbreaker on Friday, 2 outs in the 9th, and Louisville ties it up. Then they take the lead in the 10th, and Louisville wins it. But after that,
finished 2-1 in the tournament
and win it.
and they're crowned champions after a 14-8 win over former Big 12 foe Oklahoma State. And Roger, we knew they were going to hit the ball. Like this lineup coming back can just absolutely rake. They scored 4 runs against Louisville, but then they come back and score 24 combined against Ole Miss and Oklahoma State. It's that pitching piece that we weren't sure about, but they got 2 great starts from Jared Spencer and Luke Harrison.
And you wonder, because Spencer, the Indiana State transfer, only made 7 starts. He was outstanding. Certainly looked the part against a pretty good Louisville team.
Yeah.
Then you turn around, Harrison, guy that has made 2 starts, one last year, one 3 years ago, didn't pitch 2 years ago. He was outstanding and looked the part. So is that their Friday and Saturday night guys? We don't know. Started the freshman, the JUCO transfer, Cade Bing, yesterday, and didn't get out of the first inning because of command issues. So clearly that third starter role is in flux. Not sure if it would have been Bing's anyway. I think Schloss also just liked the matchup for the lefty who came in with the reputation of strike thrower, but everybody's got a plan until you're sitting in a major league ballpark against a top 20 team and the nerves and all that.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. The hitting, Max Ballou was outstanding. They didn't even know if he'd be healthy enough. He'd been battling illness. DH'd on Friday. He was outstanding. To me, the big one obviously is the freshman Adrian Rodriguez.
He's a baller.
Yeah, he came in with that reputation, all the hype, and all he did was exceed it.
Yeah.
So a lot of good things came from that. Most importantly, they get 2 wins, 2 good RPI wins, and now they're home for 5 games beginning Tuesday night against University of Houston.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this time of year, it's always that weather pending, and then this weekend against Dartmouth.
Roger, you called it like a month ago when it was 85 degrees for the alumni game.
Anytime the alumni game is the way it was, okay, what's going to happen on opening night? It's going to be 40 degrees. The wind's going to be blowing out of the north, and here we go. Hopefully that front won't get in until this one's in the books on Tuesday. I know Schloss was concerned about that one when he left the ballpark last night in Arlington. Not the ballpark in Arlington.
No, that's long gone.
Figuratively.
Long gone.
Yeah.
Houston tomorrow, and then Dartmouth for the first home series Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then they have Incarnate Word that next Tuesday to end a 5-game homestand. And then they take off for Arizona?
Vegas.
It's Vegas.
Vegas, baby.
It's Vegas, and then the softball team's in Arizona. That's
by the way, Vegas is where Schloss got his head coaching start, UNLV, before going to TCU. So
it's
he
all
goes
connected, Roger. It's all
he
connected.
goes to Arlington to start his UT career, which is 15 miles from TCU, and his second road trip will be, where it all started at UNLV. Won't face UNLV, but they will face Texas Tech.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah,
that's
so
always a good time.
2 out of the first 3 weekends they get to go up against Big 12 teams before they come home, Santa Clara, and then boom. It's SEC time at Mississippi State.
And speaking of Texas Tech, the softball team played the Red Raiders twice at the Bevo Classic this past weekend. Played 5 games at their own home tournament and won them all. They're 11-0, the top-ranked team in the ESPN USA softball poll. Again, they're really good, Roger, and that might be an understatement.
and the win on against Tech on Friday, and obviously they're All-American. Prize package NIL deal. Najir Kennedy, the former Stanford pitcher, who she's the primary reason they were ranked as high as they did.
Absolutely, yeah.
They didn't beat her, but they beat Tech in a bizarre finish on a grounder to first, and the first baseman hits the base runner in the head. Ball shoots up in the air, winning run scores. To get 2 from Tech had to be sweet along the way.
Absolutely, yeah. They beat Tech twice, 2-1 in 9 innings with that win you referenced, and then Tech decided to throw a bunch of other pitchers, and Texas beat the tar out of them 11-0. They also picked up 2 wins over Maryland and a win over Massachusetts to stay unbeaten, and then they're headed to Arizona for a tournament. They're going to face the Wildcats, Arizona Wildcats, on their home field. Should be a good top 15 matchup for them.
Yeah, and don't they play Stanford as well?
And they play Stanford, and they're in the 15 to 20 range too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And if Najir Kennedy was still there, they'd probably be in the 5 to 7 range.
Right, exactly. Yeah. All righty. Well, hey, we're going to end this episode of the Horns Report here. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.